Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful today. Will is recruited by Steffi and Finn for the Luna seduction trap. In their battle against Luna Nozawa, Steffi Forrester and John Finn Finnegan will have a vital ally. Luna obviously has a weakness, and that weakness is Will Spencer. Finn and Steffi will attempt to take advantage of Will throughout the week of June 23rd to 27th. Will support helping because he sees Luna as a danger to Electra Forrester and other individuals he cares about. The three of them will collaborate on taking down Luna after Steffi and Finn enlist Will in a seduction trap set by Luna. Before Will starts this plan, fans might expect to see a brainstorming session or two. Luna has expressed her interest in Will and, to be honest, now appears to be completely enamored with him. Luna apparently won't realize anything fishy is happening when Will knocks on her door with significant news. Despite Will's repeated rejections, Luna thinks she's improving and that he secretly wants her. When Will visits Luna's residence, he will effectively convince her that she is correct. Will claims that Electra doesn't excite him and discusses a supposedly fictitious breakup in the weekly preview video for B&B. Will responds that he wouldn't be there if he didn't enjoy danger when Luna asks him if he does. Before they finally lock lips, the teaser also features Luna kissing Will's neck. A makeout session might be the extent of Will's seduction attempts because it's difficult to imagine him going so far as to take Luna to bed. There will inevitably be some issues with this daring plan, but Will approach this task with confidence. When the truth is revealed and the ruse eventually falls apart, Luna will undoubtedly lose it. In the opulent, tension-laden halls of the Forrester mansion, where secrets are currency and alliances are constantly shifting, Steffi Forrester sat cross-legged on the pristine white sofa, her expression flinty with purpose. John Finn Finnegan stood across from her, his arms folded, jaw tight, the moral weight of their latest scheme grinding against his naturally ethical nature. Despite his medical oath and usually straight-laced demeanor, he had seen too much from Luna Nozawa, manipulations wrapped in charm, obsession disguised as love, and a growing darkness he could no longer ignore. They had tried everything else. Logic. Diplomacy. Even silence. But Luna was a force unrelenting, weaving her way into the lives of everyone they cared about, especially young, impulsive, but resolute Will Spencer. As the youngest member of the Spencer legacy, Will had matured beyond anyone's expectations, bearing a quiet intensity inherited from both Bill Spencer and Katie Logan. But it wasn't just his lineage that made him perfect for their plan, it was Luna's unyielding fixation on him, a flaw in her emotional armor, a pressure point Steffi could press. Their meeting began in secret, under the cover of night, behind closed doors at Finn's office at the hospital, safe from wandering eyes and scandal-hungry ears. Steffi called Will in personally, her voice low and urgent. He came, of course, he always came when Steffi called. There was a kind of loyalty between them, complicated by family history and shared pain. As Will entered the room, he immediately sensed the tension, the unspoken conspiracy that hung in the air like humidity before a storm. "We need your help," Steffi began, her tone carefully curated, half plea, half command. Finn's eyes met Will's, silently asking for understanding, for discretion. "It's Luna," he said finally. "She's not who she pretends to be. And we can't let her get closer to Electra, to you, to any of us." Will, always quick, always sharp, nodded slowly, considering the implications. "You want me to, what? Lure her in? Pretend to want her?" Steffi didn't flinch. "She wants you already," she said. "We just need you to use that." A beat passed. This could change everything. The plan was straightforward in theory, complex in execution. Will would make Luna believe he was finally falling for her, that his years of resistance were crumbling under the weight of mutual desire. He'd play the part of the conflicted lover, torn between his past with Electra and the passion Luna insisted existed between them. It was dangerous, not only for what it might unleash in Luna but also for what it might awaken in Will himself. Could he pull it off? Could he seduce the seductress and not lose a piece of himself in the process? Steffi and Finn believed in him, or needed to. So they plotted, rehearsed lines, anticipated reactions, every detail meticulously mapped out like a military campaign. they couldn't afford failure. Luna was too close to Electra, too volatile, too unpredictable. Steffi's daughter was perceptive, intuitive, and vulnerable, a dangerous combination when faced with someone as emotionally unstable as Luna. And Finn had his own reasons. He had seen the subtle gaslighting, the invasive oversteps, the possessiveness masked as protectiveness. He feared what Luna might do next if left unchecked. When the day of the plan arrived, Will prepared with the precision of an actor stepping into the role of a lifetime. He dressed carefully, choosing a charcoal gray sweater, casual, but just tight enough to accentuate his athletic frame, and jeans that hinted at the effortless cool he knew Luna couldn't resist. He practiced his facial expressions in the mirror, softened his voice, added just enough vulnerability to his tone to suggest longing. He even rehearsed the fake story, that Electra had broken things off, that the spark was gone, that he'd been thinking more and more about Luna. "You excite me," he would say. Electra never did. The line was manipulative, cruel even, but necessary. Steffi had warned him, Luna needed to believe this was real, completely and entirely. When he finally knocked on Luna's apartment door, his heart pounded, not from nerves but from anticipation. The moment had come. Luna opened the door with her usual effervescent smile, though her eyes immediately scanned him, noting the difference in his posture, his energy. "Will," she said, feigning surprise even though she'd clearly hoped, expected, he'd show up eventually. "I wasn't sure you'd ever come." Will stepped inside, his movements measured, deliberate. "I wasn't sure either," he replied. "But things have changed." The conversation moved quickly from awkward to electric. Luna, for all her flaws, was perceptive. She noticed details others ignored, the shift in Will's gaze, the hesitation in his voice, the way he stood just slightly too close and then retreated. It was all part of the act, of course, but Luna read it as passion, as the beginning of something monumental. When Will mentioned Electra and the so-called breakup, Luna's eyes glittered with unspoken triumph. "I knew she wasn't right for you," she whispered, almost to herself. "She doesn't understand your depth." The seduction unfolded like a tragic play. Luna, emboldened, closed the space between them, touching his arm, brushing against his chest, whispering affirmations as though he were some lost soul only she could save. When she asked if he liked danger, and Will replied, "I wouldn't be here if I didn't," a shiver of excitement ran down her spine. He was saying all the right things. And then came the kiss, hesitant at first, then deeper, more urgent. Luna pressed her lips to his neck, her breath warm against his skin. Will allowed it, every second feeling longer than the last. He closed his eyes, not in passion, but in concentration, making sure he didn't overplay his hand. He needed her to believe, but not too much. He needed to stay in control. The kiss lingered, their bodies close, and for a moment, Will feared she might sense the artifice behind the passion. But Luna was too caught up, too overwhelmed by the moment. She believed. And that was enough. The aftermath was even more delicate. Will pulled away just enough to suggest conflict. "This feels right," he said softly. "But I don't want to hurt anyone." Luna touched his cheek, her voice low. "We're not hurting anyone," she insisted. "We're following our hearts." Will nodded, pretending to be torn. Inside, he felt the weight of the deception, the quiet guilt gnawing at the edge of his conscience. But he also remembered why he was doing this: Electra, Steffi, Finn. The people Luna had tried to manipulate, isolate, control. He was their only chance to end this without escalation. Meanwhile, back at the Forrester estate, Steffi and Finn watched the clock nervously, waiting for Will's signal, for some update that would confirm their plan was working. When Will finally sent a brief message, she bought it, the relief was palpable. But so was the anxiety. They were in too deep now. If Luna found out, there was no telling what she might do. Days passed, and Luna became even more obsessive, texting Will constantly, sending him music, quotes, love notes. Her fantasy of them was building by the hour. Will kept up the act, meeting her occasionally, always with a hint of restraint to keep her hooked. But the pressure mounted. Electra noticed his distance, questioned him softly. Steffi urged patience. Finn worried they were pushing Will too far. Then, the turning point came. Luna showed up unannounced at Spencer Publications, seeking out Katie, asking too many questions about Will and Electra. Her mask was cracking. The desperation was showing. She started telling people Will had finally seen the light, that they worked together now, that Electra wasn't in the picture. It was too fast, too public, and dangerous. Steffi and Finn realized they needed to pull the plug before Luna's delusions caused real harm. They orchestrated a final encounter, one last meeting where Will would gently but firmly end things, revealing the truth, exposing the manipulation. That confrontation was explosive. When Will told Luna the relationship had been a lie, a tactic to reveal her intentions, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She froze. Her eyes narrowed, her voice flat. You played me, she said, the words barely audible. You all did. The silence that followed was suffocating. Will stood his ground, even as Luna's expression darkened into something unreadable. You think you've won? She asked, stepping closer. You haven't. You have no idea what I'm capable of. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Finn and Steffi arrived moments later, prepared for the fallout. But Luna didn't lash out, not yet. She simply walked away, her silence more terrifying than any outburst could have been. The aftermath left Will shaken, but Steffi pulled him into a hug, whispering that he'd done the right thing, that he'd saved them all. Still, as they watched Luna disappear into the night, they knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Luna Nozawa had been wounded, and a wounded heart is a dangerous thing. What came next would test them all. Ms. Dillon is in danger because of Luna's actions, which resulted in a disastrous error for the teacher. Many admirers were shouting at their televisions when Ms. Dillon made a huge mistake. Without doing any investigation or background checks, who in their right mind asks a stranger from the beach to help teach young children? In an attempt to teach the children, naive Dillon recently invited a murderer into her daycare. But that's exactly what happened when Ms. Dillon asked Luna Nozawa to perform as a guest artist for the kids. Luna connects with Hayes at his summer art program through origami. It's obvious that Ms. Dillon, or just Dillon as she introduced herself to the adult Luna, is out of touch with current affairs. Dillon would have been aware of all the media coverage of criminal Luna and her bizarre pardon story if she had been. Rather, Dillon sees Sunshine as just a sweet, creative person who wants to impart her knowledge to the class's young artists. Dillon was drawn into a perilous web by Luna, inviting catastrophe. The audience has been watching Luna trap Dillon in a dangerous predicament that is sure to cause problems. It goes without saying that Hayes Finnegan would benefit from a lecture on stranger danger. Especially in light of Steffi Forrester and John Finnegan's worries about the threat that Luna poses. It's odd that nobody at the Cliff home seemed to mind at all that Hayes got a present from a nice lady without posing any serious concerns. Now, because of Ms. Dillon, B&B spoilers suggest that a really sinister guest is set to arrive in her classroom. Dillon could become the next victim of Luna. Given all of this, we have to wonder how Dillon's story will turn up in the end because, as a disposable character, she could become one of Luna's victims. Luna has already brought terrible fate to Tom Starr and Paul Hollis-Hollister. Will Dillon follow suit? Luna might choose to get rid of Sunshine entirely if Dillon finds out who she really is and threatens her intentions. Luna has demonstrated that she will not let anything or anybody stand in her way, so if necessary, and it appears that she might need to, she could take Dillon away permanently. Dillon could be in grave danger if she tries to stop Luna's plan to kidnap him and pay with her life, as the story appears to be building towards Hayes' kidnapping. Ms. Dillon committed a blunder so catastrophic that it left viewers screaming in disbelief, hands clenched and faces twisted in horror at the reckless negligence she displayed. What was she thinking? Who in their right mind sees a stranger wandering barefoot along a beach and decides, after no more than a whimsical conversation and a half-hearted compliment about seashells, to invite them into a classroom full of vulnerable children? Was it naivete, denial, or a desperate attempt to bring fresh energy into her summer art program? Whatever it was, Ms. Dillon, known to her adult guests as simply Dillon, invited danger through her very doors when she welcomed Luna Nozawa into her daycare facility without so much as a Google search. It's a decision that now seems more than ill-advised, it's potentially criminal. Who invites someone with a nationally televised criminal history into a space meant to nurture innocence and creativity? Luna, known in some circles as Sunshine, had re-emerged from a swirl of legal controversy and whispers of tragedy, yet Dillon didn't blink when this woman asked to share her skills in origami with the class. Dillon, it seems, was entirely unaware, or chose to be, of the red flags waving violently around her new guest. Luna's involvement in the bizarre death of Tom Starr, the mysterious disappearance of Paul Hollis Hollister, and the tangled web of lies surrounding her so-called pardon were all conveniently brushed under the rug in Dillon's mind. Perhaps she thought she was giving someone a second chance. Perhaps she believed in rehabilitation. Or maybe, as the more cynical viewers believe, she simply didn't care enough to look deeper. And so, she let Luna in. Luna, the enigma, the smiling stranger with haunted eyes, was allowed to sit among children, to fold paper cranes and whisper stories of hope and beauty while the world outside screamed in unison, "What are you doing, Dillon?" But Dillon didn't hear them. She was too enchanted by the aura Luna projected, too enthralled by the art, too blinded by the calm exterior that masked the chaos underneath. It wasn't just origami Luna brought with her, it was deception, danger, and a chilling agenda that was slowly coming to light. Hayes Finnegan, a bright, curious child with a heart full of wonder, was among those attending the art program. And Luna, with her calculating charm, immediately took a special interest in him. She gave him a butterfly folded from gold foil. To Hayes, it was magic. To Luna, it was a message. Steffi Forrester and John Finn Finnegan, Hayes' concerned parents, had already expressed discomfort about Luna's growing presence, not just in their personal lives, but now, thanks to Dillon, in Hayes' classroom. They warned of Luna's unpredictable nature, her manipulative tendencies, her dark past. But Dillon, naive or willfully ignorant, dismissed them. "She's just teaching origami," Dillon said with a laugh, unaware, or perhaps too stubborn to admit, that she had just armed a wolf with the keys to a nursery. There was an eerie sense of inevitability in the air, a slow-building dread. Luna's every smile was a blade hidden in silk, and every paper crane folded by her hands carried weight far beyond its delicate wings. Viewers noted the unsettling ease with which she maneuvered around Dillon, slipping into her confidence, flattering her, feeding her ego with praises about how welcoming and refreshing her program was. Dillon, in turn, preened under the attention, oblivious to the snare tightening around her. The moment Dillon let Luna take over a full session without supervision, she crossed a line she could never uncross. Luna's stories grew darker, more surreal. She spoke of lost children, misunderstood monsters, and a place where nobody ever gets hurt, because nobody asks questions. The kids listened, wide-eyed. Dillon, for her part, still saw only performance art. But something sinister was brewing. As Luna's influence grew, so too did the unease among the parents. Still, Dillon clung to her decision. She dismissed concerns with a wave of her hand and a smile that looked more forced with each passing day. She said Luna had a gift, that she was helping the children open their hearts, and that everyone needed to stop being so paranoid. But paranoia turned to panic when Hayes didn't come home one afternoon. A search ensued. Police were called. Chaos descended on the sleepy art program. And Dillon, shaking, breathless, her perfect world crumbling, could no longer deny that she had made a terrible mistake. All clues pointed to Luna. She was gone. So was Hayes. And so was the folder containing class rosters, emergency contacts, and parental permissions, information Dillon had left in her unlocked desk drawer. As the authorities scrambled to locate Luna and the missing child, Ms. Dillon sat alone in the art room, surrounded by paper swans and half-finished paintings, each brushstroke now a ghostly echo of what once was a happy, innocent space. The media was merciless. Headlines screamed, "Teacher negligent in child abduction case." Parents were furious. Strangers threatened her online. Her license was suspended. Her future in early childhood education, destroyed. But worse than any of that was the weight of guilt she bore. She had let her guard down. She had invited evil into her classroom. And now, a child was missing. Luna, meanwhile, was already being discussed in hushed tones across the soap opera universe as a modern-day villain, enigmatic, intelligent, dangerous. She had pulled the wool over Dylan's eyes with the precision of a master manipulator. And now, Dylan could very well be next. If Luna saw her as a loose end, someone who could expose the cracks in her story, she might come back. Dylan, now living in fear, installed security cameras in her apartment. She stopped answering unknown calls. She began sleeping with the lights on. Could Luna truly come for her? Absolutely. Luna had demonstrated before that she would eliminate anyone who stood in her way. Tom Starr, once her lover, now a statistic. Paul Hollister, who dared question her truth, vanished without a trace. And Dylan? She was the one who let Luna in. She was the one who could testify. If she remembered the details, what Luna said, what she took, how she left, then Dylan was a liability. And in Luna's world, liabilities don't last long. What began as a feel-good story of artistic collaboration had spiraled into a chilling cautionary tale. Viewers remained glued to their screens, breath bated, wondering if this former teacher would end up as another victim in Luna's calculated descent into madness. The cliffhanger loomed like a shadow. Would Dylan fight back? Would she survive the storm she helped unleash? Or would she be remembered only as the woman who welcomed death into her daycare with a smile and an open door?